Welcome to another episode of Wheel of Horror, the podcast where two best friends spin a wheel once a week. It chooses the horror movie and they discuss it. Today we're talking about 1981's Friday the 13th Part 2, which was directed by Steve Miner. I'm your co-host Alec.
This is Joe.
And today we have a very special guest with us. We have Mr. Andy Danish, who is a voiceover master and a huge horror fan. So welcome to the show, Andy.
Thank you, and don't give me too much credit. I am not a master of any means. I'm a jack, if anything.
Oh, well, I think you're a master. I think you're very good.
Ah, shucks.
Well, welcome to the show, Andy. You are, you and I had met, I don't know, maybe a few months ago out here in LA at a pool party, I think. And you and I just, we kind of hit it off, obviously being voiceover guys and then also being horror fans. And we kind of started talking about the podcast, getting into all that. So this being your first time on the show, I kind of wanted to know a little bit more about your history with horror, what got you into it, and what your favorite horror film is before we jump into the actual movie.
Yeah, I mean, my faves are the classics, Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Halloween, and I'm one of those people who kind of got into the really weird, bad, or by most people's accounts, bad one, but in cult status, good ones, in my opinion. Like, I love the bad Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 movies, like Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, for example.
Aww.
And I remember watching lots of reruns of Friday the 13th, all parts, on late night TV, and just, being creeped out as like a teen, just sort of like letting it settle in the background. I love all the bad Halloween sequels, the Thorn trilogy sequels, even though everybody else hates them. I love watching them, and I think they're amazing. And I also like the more obscure stuff. I like The Town That Dreaded Sunset.
Oh, yeah.
I also like Black Christmas. I like, what's the one, the rape revenge one?
West House.
I Spit on Your Grave.
Oh,
that
yeah.
one.
Yeah.
That one you can only watch so many times, though.
Yeah, that one's pretty brutal. So it sounds like mostly slasher films is kind of like your faves.
Yeah, I mean, I do appreciate regular horror. It's just they're not coming to me at the moment right now. But yes, I do have a preference for the slashers, though.
Well, good. You're in the right place then, because we're talking about a classic.
Yes, we are.
Andy,
Yeah.
we just met, and I just want to say, I already feel closer to you because I back you up on everything you just said pretty much. I haven't seen The Town That Dreaded Sundown, and this movie actually reminded me that I need to see that because Jason resembles the killer in that movie. That's the only thing I know about that movie, really, and I do want to see that. And I've also never seen I Spit on Your Grave, but everything else you said, man, I'm right there with you.
Yeah, I mean, that's the funny thing is that exactly Jason resembles a killer in that. And plus, the other thing you can enjoy in The Town That Dreaded Sundown is a serial killer actually killing somebody with a trombone. By playing the trombone, he kills him by going, and impales the guy with it when he's playing the trombone. And you have to watch this to believe me. You're like, how does that work? Wait, I don't understand that. I'm like, watch it and you'll see how they try to pull this one off.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah, I haven't seen that one either. Well, jumping into this one, Joe, you have been on at least 4 Friday the 13th, so we've covered in horrific order on this podcast. But this is a great one. This one I feel like it just takes all of the amazing parts from part 1 and then just kind of like cranks it up to 11, more character development, more intense bad guy, and we lose poor Ralph, unfortunately. But yeah, Joe, what were your thoughts revisiting this one again? I love live events, but I hate buying tickets. The hidden fees suck, and coordinating with friends is a nightmare. I always end up fronting a bunch of money and then chasing down my friends to get reimbursed. And if they flake, I'm stuck with the whole bill. But then I discovered Fanimal. Fanimal has tickets to everything, and there are no fees. The price you see is the price you pay. Not only are the prices transparent, but they're almost always lower than anywhere else I look. And for any hot tickets, like Lollapalooza, or a Dodgers game, or a weekend concert, Fanimal is always the cheapest option. Nobody goes to live events alone, so why buy tickets alone? Fanimal's patented group purchase makes it easy. First, you set a minimum size for your group, and choose the number of tickets you want to pay for yourself. Then you invite friends. When the minimum size is met, everyone gets charged and receives their tickets. If the minimum size isn't reached in time, nobody gets charged. You don't commit until your friends do. And Fanimal has amazing customer service. Check out their hundreds of 5-star reviews. The next time you need tickets, go to Fanimal.com or download the Fanimal app and sign up with code HORROR for $20 of credit towards your first purchase. Check out Fanimal and experience more.
You know, growing up, me and my friends watched these movies constantly, and I was thinking this one and the first one are probably the ones we rewatched least, which was interesting. I feel like when I was a kid, maybe I felt that it wasn't really official until he got his hockey mask in part 3, you know?
Yeah.
But I don't know, as I've gotten older, I feel like I've grown to appreciate this one more. Like you said, I feel like it's just a tighter movie, tighter pacing. I feel like the actors are much more polished. You know, I think it helps that I know a lot of these actors from other 80s movies. And I feel like in the first Friday, even though you have Kevin Bacon in it, I feel like that has a feeling of a kind of, oh, I have a friend who has a friend that could be in this. And it has that kind of homemade feel, which is very charming. But I do feel like this movie, to me, is kind of an improvement in every way over the first one and even over a lot of the sequels.
Yeah, I mean, obviously getting the introduction of, like, an actual imposing, attacker as opposed to, like, an old lady, that's a huge step up in itself. But yeah, the character development, I mean, Ginny, the lead final girl in this one, is amazing. I mean, we find out so much about her throughout the film, about how she's like a psych major, and then she uses that at the end to like kind of beat Jason. Like, that's really cool. And it's cool that they were doing that so early in this franchise. I wish they kind of retained that a little bit as they went on. But yeah, I will say, though, the only thing about the pacing I'm going to disagree with is the beginning. Like, dude, it's like 15 minutes of like last time on Friday the 13th. Like, I don't know. Do we need that? This movie came out like less than a year after the first one. Do we need a full recap?
Well, it starts with the scene where it's Alice kind of walking at home after dealing with all the mishigas that happens in part 1, and Jason comes to her home and kills her in her home. And then it goes into the recap where it's what's-his-face, the head counselor, telling it around the fire, be like, did you ever hear the story of Mrs. Voorhees at this camp? And like kind of regaling everybody with a campfire story. So I think they kind of try to work it in with like a fake setup, but he's actually like setting it up as a prank, I think, kind of sort of as like a little tongue-in-cheek exposition dump. And I think what's sad actually is that with Adrienne King, who played Alice, the role she took on in this movie, the producers wanted her back, but because she was getting stalked by people after the first movie, she said she would only agree to do it if her character got killed off, so people would stop coming up to her or stop stalking her afterwards.
Yeah, I did hear. Did you hear that, Joe, too?
Yes, absolutely. And I also heard that her agent was doing some very hard negotiating, too, which didn't make things any easier. But yeah, we're left with her just in this opening scene. But we do get a flashback, a very long flashback. She is actually dreaming it.
Right.
That's right.
And yeah, that scene does go on for a while, but I do feel like that's kind of an 80s staple. We are still in the pre-VHS time period. Some people, maybe didn't see the first Friday or don't remember it that well. So, if you look at the early Friday movies or the Rocky movies, they always have that kind of last time in Crystal Lake.
You know what? You're right, though, Joe. I didn't think about that. Like, I just found out that Empire Strikes Back didn't air on television for 7 years after it was released. So You're probably right. I can't imagine this R-rated slasher film was like running on TV all the time either. So yeah, that's a good point. It is still long. If you skip that whole intro part of her, and then it's like the movie's like an hour and 15 minutes long. But whatever. I love it.
Yeah. That's fair. I was actually thinking Scream. I don't know if it ever occurred to me before, but this whole prolonged stalking of Alice, maybe it was kind of her blonde bob too, had me thinking this movie had influence on Scream.
I think you're right, because she's on the phone.
Yeah, she's on the phone. So yeah, it's something that occurred to me.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. That's wow. My mind is blown right now.
And remind me, whose head is that in the refrigerator?
It's Mrs. Voorhees.
That's Mrs. Okay, so all right. Wait. So,
Okay, no, we're getting to something that I want to jump into, but go ahead. Whatever point you're going to make, go for it.
I just need to like walk through the beginning a little bit. So basically, it starts off like a little girl like walking through a puddle in a suburb, and then it's like, "Come here, Jenny," or whatever. And the little girl leaves, and then we see Jason walking through a puddle, basically. So we're supposed to believe that he's holding his decapitated mother's head, okay, following this girl away from Crystal Lake to her house, putting his mother's head in the freezer. You know, it's gotta retain some of its freshness, so I get that. But then he kills Alice. Why does he? Well, yeah, she killed his mom, so I guess it makes sense. But come on, he leaves Crystal Lake.
I mean, I'd like to believe that he's crafty enough to say, okay, I'm going to put it in a big box with a bow on it as if I'm bringing a gift to Alex. That way, nobody will know that I'm going to kill her. Instead, it'll look like I'm going to give her a present, and she won't know about it. Don't tell anyone, little girl. I'm surprising her with a surprise birthday present. It's a box that's shaped like a head, and it's got a big bow on it. Can you open the door for me? I'm going to surprise her and put it in the fridge. She'll be surprised.
I just thought of that too, though. So wait, so he snuck in while she was on the phone, put it in the refrigerator, and then wait, what the fuck? I just realized that.
Surprise!
Yeah. Joe, sorry, what were you going to say? I need to know.
I mean, I'm almost hesitant to say it because I feel like I'm just going to derail this whole episode. But, okay, Andy, you brought up the scene where Paul is kind of giving us a rundown on Mrs. Voorhees and Jason and the whole backstory. So do you guys in your like head canon, is this how you believe? Is this Jason's true backstory, that he did not drown in the late 50s, that somehow he survived and has been living in the woods of Western New Jersey for the last 20-something years? You know, because this is pre anything supernatural that would happen later. This scene is telling us, okay, Jason is the villain. He has been living off the land. He did not drown. And he's the new bad guy. I feel like some people feel that he rose from the lake or something when his mother was killed, possibly more recently. I'm just trying to figure out, like, what is Jason's true backstory, or is it different for everybody?
Well, I have to say that considering how crafty of a shack that he built in part 2, the fact that it had a working toilet, he's quite an intelligent fellow there. So I'd like to think that he was able to sneak around. I'd like to think that he survived and, found ways to live off the land and kind of be remote from society, and found little things to keep himself alive and then sneak back in the water when Alice came back and killed his mother. So I figure it's similar to that story of that guy who became a hermit up in Canada, who he would break into people's homes every once in a while, but basically just like completely removed himself from society, though. Mm-hmm. I have a feeling like it's a similar dynamic where it's like he would broach civilization when he needed something, but otherwise he would kind of keep to himself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I always took it as something like that as well. I think something that might confuse people too is that ending scene, the jump scare at the end of the first one when he jumps out of the lake, grabs Alice, and he's still a kid.
Yeah.
But I always just took that as a dream sequence, and I kind of take the end of this movie as one, and then we get another one in part 3 where Jason's mom jumps out of. So it's weird. It's a little messy, but yeah, I feel like there is some, maybe Crazy Ralph is right. There is something cursed about this land, but we are not in supernatural territory yet. We'll get there with Jason Lives.
I agree with everything you said initially, Joe, about how, like, I don't think that he died, but, and there's nothing to back this up at all in any of the movies, but I think either Mr. Voorhees or somebody, maybe it's like a cult that's around Crystal Lake or whatever, they have been keeping Jason away from his mother or whatever, and they were the ones to help him build the house. Because, dude, there's no way an 8-year-old, you're right, Andy, could have plumbing in the middle of the woods. Like, it's too crazy. So, I don't know. I'm going with Mr. Voorhees or a cult.
So we're going to Thorn trilogy territory now, then.
Yeah, I know.
That sounds great. I'll take it. Honestly, this is something that Jason Goes to Hell should have done. because we've talked a little bit about that. I feel
Mhm.
like Jason Goes to Hell raises more questions than it answers.
I know. It had the chance.
But I'm sorry, I'm derailing this conversation
No,
seriously.
you're right though, because like this is the first introduction to Jason, so we need to know like how is he alive? Like how has he been alive by himself, and why is he so evil? Like I don't know. Was his mother getting beheaded the thing that really was like, all right, I'm just gonna kill everybody now? You know, it's it doesn't really matter. Like that virgin thing doesn't really hold up in any of them now. Even looking back at this one, like the kid in the wheelchair, he didn't have sex. What the hell?
I have to say, Mark has a lot of game though. Like the way he drew them in, he didn't even have to try at all. He just sat there in that chair, and I'm like, damn, dude, good on you.
I always felt terrible for him because he is right about to score and he gets a machete in the face.
I know. It sucks. That is one of the most memorable kills to me, though, is because it's like so outlandish that he falls down the entire flight of stairs, too. I love it. Like in the rain. Like it's just so bad. Apparently, I saw a little behind the scenes that girl actually was like really into him and was like, hey, like I really like you. And he's like, I'm gay. I'm sorry. Like sort of thing. So, yeah, so she really wanted him in real life, too. So, yeah. But this one doesn't have as much of Jason in the forefront. It kind of keeps it vague, like Mrs. Voorhees in the first one. It's a lot of POV, a lot of like foot shots and stuff like that. Do you think they were trying to be like a surprise, like the first one again, or do you think they were like, no, they know it's Jason, but we're just like not gonna reveal him till the end?
I think they couldn't make up their mind on that. I have a feeling like they were kind of just like throwing things together, because there were a lot of kills that were kind of awkwardly or like when the movie was promoted, like they were showcasing how it was going to have more showing more kills or showing more gore than it actually did. Like there's the scene where there's the two of them on the bed. I forget the name of the two teens who they're about to get it on, and Jason kills them with a giant spear to the back. And initially on the box cover, you actually see like the stake or the pole going through the kid's back. But in the movie itself, you don't see that part. You kind of just see the girlfriend's reaction, but you don't see the actual puncture, though. And that, I think that was a big critique, is that there were a lot of actual deaths that weren't seen, or a lot of slashes that weren't seen. There were like only a handful. Like there was Ralph's, there was Mark's, but otherwise not too many.
You're so right. I remember on the back of the VHS box when I was a kid, they showed that death scene, the spear going through the couple while they were having sex, and that moment is not in the movie. I talk about this every Jason episode. I hope I'm not a broken record, but this one was especially cut down by the MPAA.
Yes.
Like most of them were. But this one, I don't know if it is as much as part 7, but quite a bit. And, that always just really sucks. And no Tom Savini in this one, but from what I understand, the special effects artists they did get are also very accomplished, and they came up with some great gags, but a lot of them aren't in the movie.
Well, Joe, I wanted to mention, because you do bring that up, every Friday the 13th, but it's like, it's justified because it's true. But I want to know, like, this episode of the podcast is brought to you by Bard's Clothing. The days of "Hi, my name is" are over. We live in a virtual world, and our images are being shared on social media and professional pages every day. With over 1,000 fabrics to choose from, Bard's Clothing is here to tell your story through clothing. Make sure the image you want people to have of you is the one you're sending, because by the time you get face-to-face, their minds might already be made up. Quality clothing, all made here in America. Head on over to www.bardsclothing.com or follow them on Instagram @bardsclothing. This is something I've always wanted to do on this show, on Wheel of Horror specifically. I wanted to choose the most important year in horror and have each of us not talk about it beforehand, come in and basically present our case of why we think this is the most important year of horror. But I wanted to know, 1981, do you think that was the peak of slasher mania in America?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably close. I mean, I know Tom Savini didn't work on this movie because he was working on The Burning, which is also a camp slasher movie, a fun one too. Yeah, I mean, they were cranking them out at this time. Prom Night was around. I think Prom Night was the year before. I mean, there's just so many.
And Halloween 2 came out this year as well.
Evil Dead came out.
Oh yeah, Evil Dead was 81.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just I always wonder if, like, obviously the Friday the 13th, it seems like it was the one that, like, it wasn't the original one, you know, or anything like that, but it was the one that got the most notoriety and, like, you know, the critics were really paying attention to and everything like that. So for this one to come out, it does feel tamer than the first one. I mean, the throat slicing on that tree in the first one really stands out to me, and we didn't get anything like that in this one.
Yeah, I think, I mean, Friday the 13th got the most infamy,
Yeah.
you know, and it was so successful. I think it was so much more successful than anyone thought because, like, everyone was just on to a different job. Like, Sean Cunningham was working on something else. That's why a lot of these people didn't come back. Tom Savini was working on The Burning. No one thought Friday the 13th was going to be as huge as it was. And I think, yeah, you might be right. I think they kind of paid the price for that. And the MPAA started cracking down even harder.
I will say that 1984 was, going to your point about 1981, 1984 was a comparable year because that year you had Silent Night, Deadly Night. You had another Friday the 13th. You had the final chapter, I think. You had Children of the Corn. I don't know how you did classify this one, but you had Gremlins, which is kind of the first one, kind of horror, but not really, though. And Nightmare on Elm Street also was 1984. So 1984, I feel like, was a big horror year.
Yeah, I actually just saw Friday the 13th 4 on the big screen this past Friday the 13th in May. And they had a little kind of guest speaker talking about this subject. And he thought that 84 was right at the end. Kind of, you know, it was kind of the last gasp. And after that, as far as slasher movies goes, it was really only the big franchises that survived. You know, before 84, you had so many of these low budget movies trying to capitalize on Halloween and Friday the 13th. You know, I mean, it's just endless. Every holiday had a slasher movie. So yeah, I mean, I think this movie is kind of right at the peak of it. Do you mind if I address something you said earlier?
Please.
With Jason only being seen kind of his hand here and there.
Yeah.
I think that was also kind of a tradition at the time. And it even goes back to kind of Italian giallo movies. And I haven't seen a ton of them, but the few I have seen, and I know those movies had a lot of influence on slasher movies, you usually only did see a hand and it was like a black glove. And if you look back at the first Friday the 13th or this movie, you would think they were whodunits, because they're not showing you the identity of the person. But the first Friday the 13th, we never met Mrs. Voorhees before she's revealed. So it's not really a whodunit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's more of just, because you want to know who it is, but there's no red herrings. There's nobody you're like, oh, there's no reveal, like, kind of. But
yeah, I mean, they should have introduced, I mean, if they wanted to do a whodunit kind of movie, or to have it be a bigger twist, they should have had Mrs. Voorhees like in the diner in that early scene in the first movie or something, or just had her stop by the camp for something, and then it would have been like, oh shit. But yeah, that's always been something I found a little strange about the first Friday the 13th.
Yeah, and I think obviously they weren't putting that much thought into it. I mean, it would have been great if they had a story or writer like yourself on board to pitch these ideas and, you know, say, hey, why don't we make this a little smarter, people, and, you know, broaden our audience a little bit. But I mean, obviously, you know, they were capitalizing on Halloween being such a hit, and other slashers or smaller slasher movies that came before it having so well done, because they were made on a smaller budget and had a higher return. And I think for the Paramount, that was like the main appeal, is like, oh, we can make these really cheap and we can, you know, make a huge profit on it, no matter how little or how much it makes, is that these are always going to make money for us. But I think, though, you're right as far as like making it a whodunit. It's having Betsy Palmer come in like, you know, as some sort of friend of the family, helping open up the camp, being there when all the teens arrive, you know, and she says like, oh, I'm going to go check on something, or, oh, I have to go away for a couple of days, something just to show that she's like, you know, helping open the camp perhaps, or looks like she's helping open the camp, something along those lines. I think, obviously, though, they weren't trying to cater to a more intelligent demographic during that time period.
Yeah, and I love to like nitpick these things and talk about the timelines and the bloodlines and all this, but you know, the shoddiness of these movies is also part of the charm, you know.
Oh,
mm-hmm.
Yeah, we love ripping them apart, though, Joe. I mean, you and I always am like, well, this doesn't make sense. And then you're like, listen, it's never going to make sense. But behind the scenes, a couple things I want to mention. And really quick, Joe, the makeup was done by Stan Winston for this one.
Yes, he actually did. He did Mrs. Voorhees' head.
Oh, okay. It looked great.
Yeah. And there were some other guys. I don't have their names in front of me, but they worked on big things. They won like an Oscar for Dick Tracy in the 90s, and so they didn't skimp. You know, if you just watch this movie, it's like, come on, where are those Tom Savini effects? But they tried.
Yeah, I mean, I still, it doesn't look bad. It doesn't, it just didn't like exceed, I guess, the expectations that were set from the first one. But I just need to say, for Eric's case, this was filmed in Connecticut. It's the pride of Connecticut, New Preston, and Kent, Connecticut. So I'm happy that Connecticut could be part of this in some capacity.
Yep.
By the way, you guys were talking about having the movies having so much exposition that it cut into the runtime. The one movie that will always be the king of that they will not take down is Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 2.
Oh, for sure.
The 45 minutes, the half of that movie is exposition and flashback scenes. So I think in comparison to that, I think we're in good territory here.
Yeah, 100%. And to tell you the truth, I don't think I've ever seen the first Silent Night, Deadly Night, but I have seen Silent Night, Deadly Night 2, so I guess I've seen them both.
Yeah, basically.
Real quick, do you guys know anything about the Jason casting controversy with this movie?
A little bit. I know it was like a younger guy that did the jump out thing, right? But then he didn't want to do it anymore.
From what I understand, they cast someone as Jason, and forgive me, I don't have their names in front of me, but they cast this guy, and like most actors, they asked him, well, are you willing to do stunts? And of course he said yes. And then when push came to shove, he didn't want to do it. So they recast him, but the production didn't have the money to mold this new actor's face and do all the prosthetics. So they brought back the old actor just for that one jump out scene at the end. And he actually got credited as Jason in the credits. Ooh. And the guy who played Jason the rest of the movie is only credited with stunts. So apparently that was a bone of contention.
Interesting.
It should be. That's messed up.
Especially in this day and age, a lot of these guys are, make a pretty good living off conventions and stuff. So I could understand being a little annoyed by that.
Oh, totally.
Yeah, they can fix that too. They can easily go in and like just update the credits. So that's pretty messed up.
I'd be pissed too. I'd guess, I don't know. I guess I'd get a lawyer, or I don't know. I don't know what I'd do if I were in that situation.
Yeah, maybe they've ironed things out in some way, but I know he wasn't happy.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Victor Miller and Sean S. Cunningham obviously have their legal issues going on, so they got bigger fish to fry and bigger things to worry about, other than this stunt actor upstart fellow of theirs.
This series is full of all kinds of behind the scenes drama.
It really is.
It's a shame the game didn't stay afloat. That thing was the best parts of the franchise for so long.
Yeah, did you ever play that, Joe?
I've never played it, no.
Oh, it's fun. Andy, you played it online at all, or?
I have. It is. And basically the whole idea is either you can be one of the campers escaping Jason in a scenario from any of the movies, and you guys can be teaming up to escape him, and one person is the leader. Other players are basically just looking for little clues to either get out of a cabin or drive a car off the camp itself. And Jason, meanwhile, one of the players gets tasked as being Jason. And so Jason is tasked with the ability of being able to appear randomly and teleport in different locations. He is tasked with the ability to have super strength and also run really fast. And you can play as different skins of Jason. So you could have the Baghead Jason. You could have Zombie Jason. You could have Part 3 Jason. You can even have Purple Jason from the Nintendo game. It's really it's really creative, and it's really mapped out really nicely. And the kills are really, really cool looking. But I think if you get killed, you respawn, I think, and keep playing. Or is it just you get knocked off. Each team member gets knocked off one by one, I think. I think. Am I right about that, or am I wrong about
Yeah.
that?
It's been a couple years since I played it, but if you're a fan, like, you got to pick it up. It's so fun, and it's as Indy was saying, Joe. It's like every little detail is clearly created by fans, so it's very, very cool.
Yeah, I've heard good things about it.
Yeah. Well, I guess before we wrap up here, did you guys have any last minute thoughts on Friday the 13th or the series as a whole?
I guess my thoughts on this particular movie is Mark has a lot of game, and
Yeah.
I do say that obviously Ginny is clearly one of the smartest characters in the whole franchise, at least the most creative thinkers in the whole franchise. And I think Jason is not at the... I feel like Jason both exercises a lot of intelligence because he builds a house and with a toilet with working plumbing, but then also gets easily fooled by Ginny by thinking she's his mom because she wears a sweater until he peers around and he's like, oh. And it's like, it's a slow motion movement. He's like, So he's kind of like on two sides of the coin with how smart he is in that movie.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. What about you, Joe?
Yeah, you know what? Amy Steele, Ginny, she's really great in this. She's one of the better final girls for sure. It's too bad she never came back. She is, though, in another pretty good slasher movie called April Fool's Day. But yeah, I mean, this one, like I said, was never one of my favorites, but it honestly might be top 3 for me. You know, I talked about the Jason Lives up. You know, I talked about that movie a lot on that episode. That's my favorite. Probably Final Chapter comes next, and you know, I'm not sure what comes after that. Part 2 might be right there. So yeah, really fun. I really enjoyed going back to this one.
Yeah, this one is really, I don't know, it's like a weird way. It's like, it basically is what starts the modern franchise. The killer is established, what he does is all kind of laid out. So it's a great movie. I'm not crazy about the bag, but whatever. It's not horrible. And I also love the intro where it's just like Friday the 13th, and it's like part 2. And I love that. That's really fun.
Oh, could I throw out one little piece of fun trivia?
Oh, please.
So the girl who gets the double impalement, Sandra is her name.
Yeah.
You know, that death was largely cut out of the movie, and apparently there was a sex scene that went with it, but producers found out when she was shooting that scene she was underage. So that might be another reason why most of that scene was left on the cutting room floor.
Oh, interesting.
How did they not know that? Like, they didn't look at her driver's license when she was filling out the paperwork. Like, I heard that too, Joe. I was like, God damn it. Yeah.
I mean, they probably started filming without them actually signing anything for a bit. Be like, come on, let's roll. And then they're like, while during filming, it's like, all right, you're going to film this and let us use all of this. They probably did it like after the fact or something.
I mean, this movie was in theaters, I think, less than a year after Friday the 13th. So there was no time. They were just throwing this together.
There was no time. Really quick about that character, though. I think in one of the sequels, somebody references her. They're like, my sister went to the camp and like blah, blah, blah. Does that ring any bells, Joe?
Yeah. The guy in part 4, the final chapter, he's on a mission to avenge her death. I forgot his name, but yeah, he's camping in the neighborhood, and he's looking for Jason because Jason killed his sister. This is supposed to be his sister. But that is all very, very strange because part 2, 3, and 4 happen in a very short amount of time. Some people think it's in a single weekend. So it's interesting that he's already on this revenge mission. He probably just found out she was dead. But anyway, here I go again.
Yeah.
No, I mean, these are all interesting theories, and narratively, it's got to be on point. There's got to be an important narrative structure. There has to be a setup. There has to be a payoff, all right? We're being very big script snobs right now.
Let me tell you, as someone who has been thinking about these things since since childhood and trying to make them make sense, there is no reward for thinking about these things. It's a sad life. So it can't be figured out.
It's a sad life. Well, one day when we do finish all of these, which, probably be within a year, I'm going to put like a super cut together. It'll be like a 4-hour episode. So if anybody wants to listen to us talk about all of them back to back to back, maybe you'll be able to put some semblance of a plot together from our...
I'm going to be like that meme of Charlie from It's Always Sunny where he has like the red string on the wall and newspaper clippings.
Yeah. Well... All right, guys. I think we've covered most of the things in this film. What do you say we spin the wheel?
All right.
All right, we got Candyman. Now, Joe, I'm going to leave this up to you. There's no date on this. So do you want to do the 2021 one or the 92 one? I'm going to leave it 100% up to you.
Let's do 92.
Okay, cool. Stick with the classics.
I saw that movie in theaters, believe it or not.
Hell yeah.
And
whoa, you were young. Holy crap.
Yeah, so I was 10.
Oh my god.
And honestly, have seen it a couple of times over the years, but it's been a very long time and I've been meaning to see it again. So, yeah, let's do it.
Well, hell yeah. Dude, it's the 30th anniversary. Let's do it.
Oh my god.
Yeah, right? Oh boy, that hurts. Yeah. Well, anyways, Andy, thank you so much for joining, dude. It was awesome to have your insight and to learn a little bit more about your history with horror and all of that. So, dude, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. This was a blast. You two are clearly the masters and knowledgeable ones here, and I learned a lot today. So, thank you for all the knowledge.
Joe is the master, dude. I have learned so much from Joe. Yeah, he's the true master.
Just take it, man. Take the compliment.
We lost Joe. Anyways, so guys, thank you so much for listening in today. If you haven't had a chance yet, on Friday we released our episode on Exposure 36, which was an awesome episode. We had the filmmaker, producer, and actor on there, so definitely check that one out. And we will see you all next Monday with Candyman from 1992. Thanks again, Andy, and have a great week, everybody.